Welcome to Command Shift Left, the podcast that helps you navigate the treacherous waters of the software development, ops, and security world while also diving into the hot current trends in the industry. Join myself, developer Philip, our co-host or Vice.
Hey audience!
As we battle through hilarious real-world stories, pro tips and hacks for navigating your way around developer security, learning about our Shift Left life, and life stories that have saved our ass. We have an absolute pleasure of hosting two incredible guests with us today. We have Itamar and Paul on the podcast. Thank you guys for being here. And as a start, let's start with you guys introducing yourself. And let's kick off with Paul.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be on this show. I'm Paul. I'm Gatling's CEO co-founder. It's hard to introduce myself because I did a lot of different stuff, but I was the business guy from Gatling, meaning that I was in charge of doing everything else except coding all day long on Gatling. So I met all our users and I tried to find a business model and try to sell it, did a bit of marketing, etc., etc. I did also code also a few applications internally. So yeah, that's my background. So I'm a bit of a jack of all trades. And what we're doing, Gatling is a load testing solution for applications to make sure your application is going to scale when everyone is connecting at the same time. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Amazing. It's a pleasure to have you here. And Itamar, do you want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Pleasure to be here. So Itamar Friedman, the CEO and co-founder of Codium AI. My background is more in machine learning, bachelor and master degree and Technion. I was two-time CTO, and now I'm playing the role of the CEO, and for some reason enjoying it. So what we do at Codium AI was building a code integrity platform for developers, trying to help developers to reach zero bugs and issues. Quite ambitious. Think about an AI assistant for developers that has all the functionality that you're regular to have from AI assistant, like code generation, question answering, but it's more focused on finding problems, generating tests, reviewing code. That's what we were focused about. And that's why we also have like an IDE plugin as well as a Git plugin and CLI plugin and CI plugin, etc.
Sounds great. And without any further ado, I think it's about time to jump into our first fact. And that fact is by you, Or. So why don't you take it away?
Thanks. My fact for this episode is that Rob Pike, the co-creator of Go, is sorry that they didn't solve integer overflow. So this is basically part of the discussion on security as part of building software. And the quote further goes from Rob, in a world where long integers can exceed the allocated memory, there's still debates going on about how we handle integer overflow. Well, what if we don't overflow? You don't have to think about it at all. The runtime cost would be low, and I just wish I'd thought of it in time and done it. People may have objected, it looks too expensive, but what it frees up is amazing. You just don't think about integer overflow anymore. And we see this conversation actually growing across the space, and one of the other languages pushing this conversation is Rust. A lot of leaders are saying, we've had so many problems with pointers and memory management with languages like C and C++, adding so many vulnerabilities into our code. Maybe we should just delegate this responsibility into the languages themselves. And there's these trade-offs that we're worried about. But some of the leaders like Rob Pike think maybe we should just not think about it. These trade-offs are very small compared to what we can actually gain in the perspective of security. And here's this overall question of it as software engineers. How much do we go into the security aspect as part of the engineering? And I wonder what you folks think.
I always find it very funny in this industry because there's a lot of, self-criticism about the stuff people build. And it's something also I found was my business partner who's actually created the open source project in the first place. And it's always about how things could have been done differently and, they're doing that thing better and everything. And it really amazes me every time that I think this kind of thoughts. But I mean, except that it's language that is still gaining more and more popularity. So yeah, it's always easy to say we could have done it differently or could have implemented it that way. But yeah, that's always hard to do history again. So
I think also as a business owner, like when your engineers come to you and say, oh, there's a trade-off here. I can make this more secure, but it will take me longer to build this, or it will cost us more in compute costs because of performance. It's not always a clear-cut answer. So for some companies, like a security company or a company like us in Permit, where it's critical infrastructure, it's a lot of time an easier question. But in other cases, it's quite a dilemma. And I think there's a philosophy here starting to evolve in the marketplace that we just want to bake security as deep as possible into our tools so we don't have to think about it and we don't have to have these dilemmas. But I think there's still a concern here.
Yeah, I hope I'm not falling into the buzz, but I think that actually this is how AI could help shift left. Because I think indeed as developers, what we like to do is build. And business owners, what we want to do is progress, advance, right? So at the same time, we need to deal with those risks. Eventually it could make harm of different cases. I can tell you that I had a bug in my previous corporate I was a part of, that I was at least 49% in charge of this bug that cost $8 million for that company. And that matters, even for a company doing a lot of business. And also related to that, there's also the reputation problem, right? There's the reputation if you have some issue, a security issue, etc. So that could be critical business issue with reputation. So I do think we do need to manage security aspects and bugs, etc. very carefully. And that's where I hope AI can help. And by the way, we can't trust AI to find everything, but I think actually AI is actually quite good on those things. A very specific, do you have here integer flow problem or things like that? That's exactly where I think AI could be applied. So I'm expecting seeing more snake style, sonar cube, sonar storm style that is focused on things like you just mentioned. So I hope that we're moving to a place where we don't get people worried that they didn't develop Go properly, because AI will help them cover all this fuck ups.
Maybe you should go and double down this even further and let AI design our programming languages. Not just have them write code in our languages, but give us a language that is more secure, more efficient.
Yeah, I think that's possible, but that's very far from now. When I say far in AI world, I would say at least 5-10 years, not 50. But that actually leads to my one of the facts I wanted to share. Is that a good time?
Yeah, I think this is a great time to move to our second fact, and that fact belongs to you, Itamar.
Yeah, it actually relates to what I pushed forward. So I think many people think that, and Jensen, NVIDIA's CEO, said that actually people, young people, should go learn farming instead of programming. And I think that this is quite a huge exaggeration, and it also relates to what you mentioned, or that, maybe AI could help us, invent the new programming languages that is not faulty in any way or another at all. And I think that's a bit of exaggeration of expectation from AI on programming for both what you said and what Jensen said. And I'll elaborate. I'd love to hear your opinion, so I'll do it short. I think actually one of the things that AI is not so good is communicating with people. It's hard to communicate with people and collaborate with a lot of people all at once, and then you're solving problems, etc. I'm not saying it's not good in one-on-one conversation, but when you do software development, you need to collaborate with a lot of people. And by the way, the same thing for autonomous driving in the city versus autonomous driving in the in the highway. And I think and I think like actually farming doesn't require too much collaboration with people. I think we'll see like a huge jump in robotics and like tractors and other parts component that can manage going through the fields and doing such things. But actually software development, yeah, we can have AI like generate a few features and even check them, etc. But this is the full process of collaborating with people. And I think it will take a lot of time until we reach to a point like you don't need to know programming or etc. Like you don't need to know anymore like assembly or something like that. And that's the same thing about AI inventing a new language. There's so much things to consider. There are so many requirements. It's very subjective, to be frank. Like different development have different flavors. I don't think it will be that easy for AI to invent a new language that actually like solves everything. It will take time.
So why did Jensen make this kind of statement? Is it because that he believes that at some point we're going to be useless at doing development work and we should just completely focus on something else? Was that the initial intention here?
I think what you're saying is that within 5 years, like in 2020, you didn't see like AI actually generating meaningful code suggestions. There were a few companies, I don't want to mention their names, some died, some still exist, and they needed to change their entire stack. And it didn't provide anything useful. And now in 2025, you're getting like very useful code suggestion, and you're starting to see GPT-5 like even having like some kind of a proper reasoning or a useful reasoning process. And you're imagining, yeah, why not? And you're seeing all these demos like the Devon styles, etc., like doing everything for you, and you didn't see the debunk video of that. And you're seeing all this robotics like stuff like figure one, and you're saying, okay, let's think about what will happen 2030 when AI could do the entire software development for you. So why should children learn development? So I think it actually is a logical or a reasonable way of thinking. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of cavities and things that was not saying so like through. I'd love to hear your opinion. Do you think like before I mentioned the thing, I think that people didn't think through? What do you think about it? Like about this fact?
I actually think what you're saying is to some degree worse. So if we combine what the NVIDIA CEO is saying and what you're saying, there's nothing that you're going to be able to do. The robots are going to replace you in the farming fields. The ChatGPT is going to replace you in the programming office. We'll just be left, I don't know, just roaming the streets, asking for credits for AWS to run AI. I don't know what we'll be doing in that perspective of the vision. But I'm more optimistic in the sense that I think two things would happen. Like based on history, when new technology comes in, it not only subverts and changes the existing workforce, it creates new work opportunities that didn't exist before. So we might not even be aware of what these are. I don't know, like space influencer or AI wrangler or I don't know, whatever it's going to be. There's in a book that I like, there's a profession called salter, where you basically test if AIs behave the way we expect enough in their conversations with humans. You salt the conversation in terms of like adding salt. I think the book is called Punch Escrow. So I'm guessing there will be a lot of new professions that don't really exist yet that will give us what to do. And also I think AI is going to be filling up the space, but it's probably going to do it in a rather lousy way in some aspects. So I definitely think that AI can create, in connecting to my fact, I think AI can create the most secure programming language potentially. But I think it will also be a horrible programming language for both humans to utilize and also even for AIs to utilize with one another. And also the worry of AI illusions and kind of just weird things popping up into the creations. Those will also subvert security and create bugs in software anyways. And it will actually create harder bugs for both the AI to understand and for the humans to understand. So maybe there will be a need for less engineers, but the quality and expertise of the engineers that will be required would be far greater than the average that we're consuming now. That's my guess. I guess we'll have to wait like 2 years or I don't know 5.
Yeah, maybe when the NVIDIA CEO actually made that claim, maybe he knows something that we don't, and perhaps the new big thing is to move into farming and do the AI in farming. Funny side story here. I'm sure you guys either heard of him or not. A very famous motorist, journalist, TV presenter, Jeremy Clarkson. Very famous for presenting Top Gear and presenting Grand Tour. A couple years ago, or maybe a little bit more, he suddenly got the urge to move and change his career switch into farming. Bought a huge amount of land in the UK and started to film a whole TV show around it, how he, going from a motorist to going to someone that is suddenly going to be very knowledgeable about agriculture, farming, having animals and so on. And he got so into it, and maybe he knew something that we didn't, like I'm saying, maybe there's something new into it. He decided now and officially announced that he's dropping our motorist shows. He's not doing the Grand Tour anymore, but he's just fully contributing into doing farming and nothing else.
Yeah, just what I say, maybe what Jensen knew and others knew, that AI is actually going to take everything, but farming is going to be fun. So it's going to still being fun. That's the reason.
That's one option that it's kind of optimistic. I'm worried about the apocalyptic option where like AI is going to destroy everything and you'll have to rely on your own farming so we'll have food.
It's all starting to make sense.
Yeah, it does.
We have so many options to grow food at scale today that I really don't see like why you'd need like manual labor to improve that field. I feel like we're missing something here. It can also be like, you have a very different perspective once you're like at the top echelons of the world. Like now NVIDIA has also surpassed Microsoft. They're the biggest public company on the planet. And maybe from that vantage point, you start to go crazy, like Elon Musk. Like he has some great ideas, but as time progresses, as he's those upper echelons, the crazier he gets with his statements, at least.
Well, I tend to be a bit skeptical when I see these kind of big statements, and for me, that's a marketing move. And I think the CEO of NVIDIA is actually a little bit interested in the development of the AI industry. So that's why he wants to make this kind of statements. But I guess everyone who actually used AI so far, and I mean not only developers but also people in marketing, etc., what they basically see is they can spend way less time in tasks that have limited value. But I think everyone realized that AI, you must control what it actually produces, and sometimes the quality of the production of the code that's actually producing is, how to put it, it needs a little bit of control, so to speak. Well, I mean, I don't think developers are going to disappear. Maybe they're going to do something else. I heard that British Petroleum announced that they're going to reduce the number of developers internally by 70% or something like that. I think it's more an announcement for the shareholders just to say, hey, we're going to have bigger margins. But if I can make like a comparison, for me, it's like, the monks before the printing industry, one of the jobs was to copy books every day. And then Gutenberg came and scaled the printing industry. And then we printed a lot of books everywhere, and it's still today. And we still have monks, maybe not as many as before, maybe, monks per inhabitant. But now we have a huge printing industry, and we have a lot of people working in it. And I think it's going to do the same in the development industry. So developers are going to do things that are different, maybe tasks with limited value will be given to AI, and but I don't see developers just disappear like that. So I mean, for me, it's more marketing than a reality.
Yeah, while I agree with everything you said, I do think it's hard to predict the future. I mean, like we can't always, know what exactly predict, how to project past, events to the future. Like I do think we should learn from it. Like that we didn't have machines and now we do have machines, and look, we have more jobs, etc. I think it is the good idea. Like it's the best bias that we have. But at the same time, like some technologies could have different outcome than we saw in the past. So while I do agree with you, just for the sake of the discussion, it could be that eventually, like we'll see here, like a different type of revolution that is not so clear. Like even relate to what Or said, like yes, like I don't think it's 5 to 10 years, but in 40 years from now, I think it's inevitable that many jobs are going to be very, very, very different. And then it's hard to say what are going to be those new jobs. So, and some jobs were eliminated. Like if you think about like dealing with electricity, like there were so many electric engineers in the past, like in the 60s, 70s, 80s. You don't need so many electric engineers right now. It's moved to software.
You have like actual professions that completely disappeared, like bottle washers. Like there used to be an entire industry of people being employed as bottle washers, just taking bottles and washing them all the time. And that was completely revolutionized and removed by automation. Also, chimney sweepers, that's like the fact that we don't need as many chimneys, and that because we have internal heating. So, a lot of things completely changed. But the trend is from our even going back to hunter-gatherers, new technology created new opportunities. It might be the case that this one is the big finale, and where AI will take over everything. I don't really know, but I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful, and if not, I for one welcome our new overlords, and they'll decide to give us universal income or something, so we don't all roll in the street. That would be kind of funny. Like all the cities are running smoothly, but no humans get to enjoy that because they don't have money.
Yeah. Just one last thing to say here. I think we should consider. I have like quite a few points like these, but just one.
Sure.
It's gonna take time until we see like AI taking over and things like that, because there is also an energetic problem. Like running AI is very expensive, and there's a lot of technology around energy creation and consumption that needs to be created, and that's hardware. So it will take us time to reach there. So it's inevitable eventually, but it will take a lot of time because we need some energy breakthroughs to happen.
Don't you think, Itamar, that there is some kind of limit in terms of resources, in terms of electricity, where at some point, I actually could believe what the CEO of NVIDIA is saying. If we have unlimited resources and we could do whatever we can to just push the boundaries of AI and so on for many years, but I'm a bit skeptical. I figure at some point it will be too expensive to implement AI, and we'll keep some human developers just to do stuff because, well, it's consuming too many resources. What do you think?
I think that if we combine those two things, like the bottleneck for AI is compute resources, and at the same time we don't have what to do with the human brains. It sounds like we'll be running AI on top of human brains, and that's how you get paid. Oh, I spent the entire afternoon computing this ChatGPT query. So I wasn't able to think about anything. But now I'm available. I got my paycheck for my daily queries. So let's go celebrate with running AI on other people.
That's a good idea. You should patent that.
It's kind of Matrix-like, right? Well, I never bought into that part of the Matrix that the machines kept us as batteries. Like I'd accept if the machines kept us as like as hardware for running compute, but as batteries, it never made sense to me. And it's just a small change in the script that they could have made. Anyways, I think this is a perfect time to move to our third fact. And that fact belongs to no other than Philip. Philip, take it away.
So I have an interesting one for you guys today. And my fact for this episode is that in 1972, a programming language called INTERCAL was specifically designed to be as difficult and as frustrating to use as possible. Have you guys ever heard of the language called INTERCAL?
Nope.
No.
I'm hoping you're going to say no. Okay, good. So essentially, INTERCAL, it was actually 1972 when this language was designed by two folks called Don Wood and James Leon at the Princeton University. And essentially, INTERCAL it's essentially short for a compiler language with no pronounceable acronym. So you can already guess where this is going. And it was intended basically as a parody of the complex programming languages at the time. So if we're going back in time to 1970, we have languages such as Fortran, or COBOL, or something like Lisp, or even assembly languages. So we're getting really, really low level. And at that point, it was very, very hard to write programs, especially for engineers to actually understand it and use it. And within INTERCAL, or within the language, it was very satirical commentary that was used and language that was used to kind of perceive how you would write these programs. So I have some examples here. And for instance, there were some unique commands that INTERCAL kind of included, things like please or forget and ignore that you had to use. And for example, if you didn't use please enough, the program just wouldn't run. Or if you use it too much, the compiler would just get annoyed at you and won't run your code either. There were some other features like saying come from as opposed to the usual go to in many programming languages. So it really got confusing. And the creators of this purposely made it very, very frustrating because they wanted to intentionally showcase how impractical a very poorly written language can be and how challenging it is to use. So they wanted to really highlight that when designing programming languages and when kind of writing and having the evolution of programming languages, the importance here is to make them as less convoluted as possible. So now my question is that given kind of the complexity and how quirky INTERCAL has been, what is the most unusual or frustrating programming language that you guys have ever worked with?
For me, it would be a language called brainfuck, which is an esoteric language that is meant to be super annoying as well. But it's meant as a joke. I don't know if I didn't get from your description if INTERCAL was a joke or is an experiment.
It was a joke. It was a joke.
Yeah.
Yes.
So with brainfuck, it's also kind of a joke experiment, and you have the only syntax that is available is left, right, plus, minus, output, comma, and inference brackets. You don't have any characters. You don't have strings. You don't have anything. Like if you want to create a character, you need to you shift to the pointer to the memory where you have the character that you want, and you increment the byte until it's the value that you want, and your entire code is just moving the pointer around. It's essentially the opposite of the pointer management that we have in modern languages or adding in modern languages. It's the opposite. It's just pointer hell as the baseline of the language. I played with it as part of a course that I had as part of my military training. There's like a shirt that we did for the end of the course, and we wanted to have something cool where there's a language that something printed on the shirt outputs something. So with brainfuck, it doesn't matter the order of the of the commands as long as they're in sequence. So we had ASCII art in brainfuck that generated something. I don't remember it, but that was the.
You said it's part of your military training, so I'm just thinking if they did that on purpose to really exhaust you.
No, so it was part of the students in that course in the military training. as part of finishing the course, we did T-shirts to celebrate, and that was I don't remember, that's like ages ago, and how we ended up at this thing, but I think it kind of represented the challenges of all of the learning we had to do in computer science. So brainfuck. Second place, I'd say Java. I sometimes also think Java is a language that was created to increase suffering and memory utilization across the world.
Yeah, I actually didn't know INTERCAL. That was funny, hilarious. And I think it's quite funny what you mentioned with the please. I think the please thing, because I think there is something similar in the AI when you're polite to LLMs. They tend to give you longer responses to your questions. I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure if it's intended or not, or if it's real. But
I never knew how I should talk to ChatGPT. There were times where I tried to be kind. There were times where I tried not to be.
But don't be kind. Don't be kind or be pleased unless you want to be. Unless you were thinking about singularity and the lords. Don't be kind, because you actually, instead of using please, you need to say, "Hey, I'll give you another $100. Do it correctly." Things like that. That's like proven to be better than please. And by the way,
really?
And like everything, I think this connects. Like if you let AI invent the next programming languages in order to make it optimized and efficient, I think we're gonna have like their INTERCAL stuff, like, because underneath they will try to optimize for no security problem, no like whatever optimization that you'll give it. Probably you want it to be very efficient on the bottom, and then on the top it will have like come from please and give me money and things like that. So I think part of the problem for me, like I used to work in Mellanox and then I was looking on the entire internet layers, networking layers, and for me the data layer and so it was really annoying. All these like bits and bytes that you need to remember that signifies like different things, and like the PCI layer and like things like that. And maybe like the TCP and UDP starts to be cool, but underneath it, it's like really annoying, like languages and formats that you need to remember, and it's like cool. Protocols are not so fun.
There's another episode where we discuss one of the facts around one of the forefathers of the internet, how they chose the size of the IP address, IPv4, and it was like just on a whim. So for people that want the full fact, you'd have to go and listen to that episode. But yeah, there's a lot of underlying infrastructure to how we're running our software and how we're running our AI that is just like people putting their fingers in the air and guessing. And those, I guess, have some compounding butterfly effects that will take us into the future. In terms of the saying please or not to AI, I'm kind of conflicted. It really depends on where this journey is headed. If AI is going to literally take over, maybe we should start working on sniveling and going, please, could I have some more?
I don't think you're looking at it correctly. The AI wants less energy. You pushed another word that just took another token. Don't think about them humans. They don't want to be polite. They don't need to need minimum words, maximum clarity.
Yeah, you mentioned Java earlier. So as I was saying, we come from the Java world, so we tend to think that JavaScript was more meant to drive people crazy. So, and as actually so part of the latest things we actually worked on, because so we have a load testing solution with a code-like approach, and we were only focused on Java and Scala communities, and now we added support for JavaScript, and that's a totally new world for us. We're currently discovering it.
Yeah, actually, on another episode, we spoke about the weird quirks of JavaScript and how how crazy it can actually drive developers, because it just really doesn't make much sense if you think about it.
And the fact that it was created as a scam, essentially a marketing scam on top of Java. It wasn't called JavaScript originally. But again, this is another episode of A Bunch of Left that you'll need to check out. I will say, if we're talking about JavaScript, obviously the problem is that you're not supposed to write JavaScript. You're supposed to write TypeScript that will be transpiled into JavaScript. And soon you'll have to use a Schmerple script that will be compiled to TypeScript that will be compiled to. So it's all transpiling all the way down. And speaking of moving all the way down, I think it's time for our last and fourth fact for this episode, which belongs to Paul. Paul, how about you take it away?
So yeah, that's something I heard a few weeks ago. So I was attending a conference in Paris, which is a open source founder summit that gathered open source entrepreneurs from the US, from Canada, from Europe in Paris. And that was actually very refreshing because, that was very practical workshops about how to build a business with an open source solution. And you didn't have like all these dramas regarding licensing changes and everything. And that's normal because most of the open source entrepreneurs, they don't think about changing licenses all the time. So, and something I heard and that made everyone laugh, and that was actually seen as true by many, is someone says that if someone manages successfully to convert 1% of his community, she or he is a genius. And we felt all in the same situation where we struggle to actually convert a community, and it's only a very, very small part, not even 1%, it's 0 point something. And I think it illustrates all the struggles and all the pains I went through throughout the years to build this business and to find a sustainable business model on the top of our open source solution. And I think it also illustrates all the how to put it. There's sometimes a discrepancy for investors between what they see, what the potential they see in open source solution, and what they actually do. So now open source is trendy, so it's good to invest in it, but they're still struggling about understanding what's the logic behind this world. So how does it even work? And even when I talk about open source to my family, to my friends, they simply cannot understand how does this even exist today. So yeah, I find this statement quite funny.
It's a very hard topic actually in the business world. I think when you started with your fact and you said open source entrepreneur, I kind of looked at you and I was like, wait, what do you mean entrepreneur? All I heard about open source is that everyone complaining how difficult it is to make any income or how to turn it into a business. But I think there's kind of, and I'm sure you from that conference you probably took out a lot of really valuable knowledge. But I think one of the really kind of good ways that I've seen from experience is to build a really good open source project that serves as a foundation to something else, and then scale the business that way. Because at the end of the day, I think in some regards, it's a little easier to gain exposure with open source projects, especially if it's helpful in the dev community. And then obviously from marketing, we know how hard it is to sell to developers. That is the most difficult thing to do. And through an open source project, you can really kind of get the trust of a developer. And then if on top of that open source project, they see that it's working for them, they see that it's great, and then they see that you've done something extra on top of it that you can convert into some value, like making it a business. I think that's kind of usually a good way to kind of take it forward.
The open source world is going through very dramatic changes in the past couple of years. I think one of the most things that have kind of shaken the ground here is basically the death of the open core model. So up till 5, maybe 7 years ago, open core was the main way you commercialize open source. So you have your open source offering and you just create a commercial offering that is directly on top of that. And you see it with like MongoDB and Red Hat. So they take their software and just provide services on top. But that's basically died. I actually wrote an article on this in the news stack. As the markets continue to move faster, you couldn't move fast enough to commercialize your own offering. Other companies would run and commercialize it faster than you. And then you having to build the open source slows you more than it speeds you up into the market. But we do see now that when you create alignment between a commercial offering that is different than the open source offering, but again, there's alignment between them, it can work really well. And as opposed to that, there are other strategies that are being applied that are not solving this as well. I think one of the strategies that is struggling is the source available strategy. So a lot of companies like Redis and also MongoDB and HashiCorp have opted for that strategy. So, we'll keep it open source, kinda, but we won't give you a license that is actually open source. So it seems that most communities take that to mean fuck you, essentially. And that kind of creates a disturbance that ruins the entire open source play at its, ironically, at its core. And I think it was very apparent now with HashiCorp's Terraform and OpenTofu. So essentially, when the main provider, the main author decides to take things off open source, then someone else comes in and says, "Oh, I'll actually keep it open source." I think this world is still will still be evolving, and I'm actually very excited. Maybe Itamar, maybe you have some insights here into the open sourcing of AI models. So that's something that has come onto the stage now.
Yeah. So first of all, like we also have an open core strategy. Okay. And like I think you need to strategize on that. You need to strategize on that. Like what do you have like additional use cases? You provide an open source that is useful. And then if you want to do that in scale, you're using the company platform. Like there needs to be some strategy where the open source is useful by itself, but you can't use it for something that for that you want a more elaborated solution. You must think about it thoroughly in advance. So that's like unrelated to AI, and specifically with AI, it's interesting. You see different strategies like Bria with their model, vision model, where they trained on permissive data. They released a model that you can play with, but you need to use them if you want to use a commercial license. This is maybe one way. And another way is that, hey, okay, we're releasing a model, but not everything around it. So eventually, if you want to make that model useful for you, you probably need to fine tune it. And we didn't release the entire data in open source, so you need to come to us. So there is like exploration of different open source, open weight. If you know that there's like open weight and open source. Open weight is like I just shared the model weights, but I didn't share everything around it. That's like a full open source. And because it's a unique field, there is new opportunity for different models. So just to summarize, some models are like as before. Here is what I'm offering, but if you want to use it commercial, come to me. Another, here is what I'm offering, you can use it, but if you really, really want to adapt it to you, like fine tune, you need to come to me. And by the way, here is a model, and if you want a bigger one, come to me. So there are like different options here that are open for open source models, open weight models.
I actually don't agree with you that open core is dead. We also have an open core business model. Sorry. I think the hope that open core is like the best solution and maybe unique solution for the future of open source is dead. So it's one solution with its limitations. And what Philip said earlier, saying you have like an open source solution and advanced feature, and as a developer is convinced it will eventually buy it at some point. It's way harder than we think, because it's not only about the value that the developer sees. It's a whole dynamic that is very complex. How you trigger the purchase in an organization, and I can usually explain how I made our first deal at Gatling. Is we were doing a proof of concept with the customer for some time, and at some point we didn't need money, and I just took the phone and said, okay, we're going to stop everything because we really need money. We need at least a few hundred euros just to make it work for a few days. And we didn't have the ability actually to stop our services. So that was bluff, but we managed to sign the very same day a first contract and then a bigger contract. So I'm not saying that's the way you should do things, but just saying that the dynamic that are involved in the purchasing process are way more complex than having features that are advanced and that brings value to the developers. And that's usually where we struggle as an open source business, first to understand and to say, okay, my product is great, but that's not enough. And I need to build a company and I need to have sales team and marketing teams. And that's usually, that's not in our culture, so to speak. And that's actually what we need to work on. But I agree that open core isn't ideal and that some businesses are trying to find a better business model. But I hope it's not completely dead because we actually have an open core business model. So yeah, fingers crossed.
I think it's also kind of the semantics here. Like I'd say I'd say something is open core if the open source product and the commercial product have the same value proposition. If you provide a different value proposition, for example, for the business owners on top of the open source component, I'd say that's an open foundation model. So you have the open source as a foundation and you build on top of it. The question is, how clear is the line between the open source and the commercial offering? And that's actually something that is really hard to get right.
All right, I think this is a great moment to wrap this episode up. Thank you very much, guys, for attending. Paul and Itamar, it was a pleasure of hosting you on this podcast. And as always, we'll see you in the next episode and see you later. I think this is the perfect time to wrap up the show. If you liked this podcast, tell your friends about it. If you didn't like it, tell your enemies about it.